Hello, everybody. Welcome to Day Drinking with David. Very, very excited to welcome my friend and partner, Marc Darroze, today. Very accomplished producer of Armagnac, bottler, éleveur, blender, doing wonderful, wonderful stuff. This brand, really the first super high quality brand to make it here in relative availability. Hoping he pops on very shortly. I'm sure he's not far. It's a pretty interesting place. Gascogne is one of those places. It's really its own entity culturally from France. Of course, many of the most famous French dishes, cuisines that we all know come from this area, and Marc will tell us more about the family's hospitality background, I'm sure, as well as a number of other exciting things about the place. I mean, it's culturally distinct for sure, and within Gascogne there are many different even multiple different cultures within that. So you go from Lalande to the Gers, and it's just a different world in each place. And it's one of my very favorite places to be. Let's see if Marc is coming. I'll send him a little invite. Darroze Armagnac. Here we go. So this is very exciting for me. I was lucky enough to visit Marc many years ago now. I guess it would have been 2013 or 14. And we spent a whole evening in his cellar and in his tasting room, walking through the vintages right when they were bottling or starting off the assemblage, which is a really interesting take on sort of the idea of blending using these single estates, which has been their specialty for so long, and using them to give a consistent product over time. Those are some of the most interesting. Let's see. Crystal, you want to ping Marc, see if he's on his way? I haven't seen it yet. Maybe he is here and I just don't see him. Hopefully everything is good over there in Gascogne. Whiskey Badger, great to see you as always. Marc is here now. Excellent. Where is Marc? Oh, very good. Darroze, voila. Marc.
Hey, yes.
Bonsoir, mon ami.
Bonsoir. How are you?
I'm so well. And you? Ça fait du bien
Very
de te
good,
voir.
very good. Very good.
Ah, that's great to hear. Thanks
Nice
so
to
much
see
for
you.
being with us. This
My
is
pleasure.
such a pleasure. Well, we've got a nice little group here. I think they're pretty excited to hear about what you do and how you do it, which is really why we're here. But I want to know first, how are you?
Oh, we are good. We are good. We just finished the harvest. It was a very, very dry year, with a lot of high temperatures and sun this summer. So we had a lot of dry harvest, but it seems to be okay. The acidity is good, which is the most important for the quality of the wine before distillation.
Right.
And it's going to be sometimes the volumes are good, sometimes it's not so nice, depending on how the vegetation was. If you have a lot of vegetation, the vegetation protects the fruit from the sun. So it depends of each vineyard, but it will be a correct year.
Because of course with brandy, you're really looking for almost the opposite qualities as you would not opposite exactly, but as you would for wine production in a lot of ways.
What we are looking for first is to have vines in very good conditions, no mushroom, no botrytis, so ready to respect the vine. And after that, it's true that we like better to keep acidity and not to have too much sugar and alcohol in the wine. The best wines for distillation are about 20 proof, 10% of alcohol, with a high acidity. So that's the reason why in such a year, we prefer to harvest a little bit earlier than usual to keep the acidity in the wine.
And during harvest, are you working with, I mean, you have your own vineyards, I assume, or no? Or are you working with your producers? Tell me about what your time is like during the harvest.
It's true that our main job is to distill the wine and to age and to mature the Armagnac. We have partnerships with plenty of small producers, and so we travel in the countryside to decide when it's a good time to harvest, which grape to harvest first. So that's a kind of common decision that we make with the producer.
A little conseil, as they say.
Exactly.
Well, that's interesting. And tell us a little bit about, just to start off, for those that don't know, what is Darroze? Where did it come from? Tell us about your lineage in the region and in France in general, and then we'll get into what you do now today compared to how it started.
First at all, Armagnac is located in southwest of France, just in the middle of a triangle, Bordeaux, Toulouse, and Spain, in an area that we call Gascony, where we have a lot of nice landscapes, nice food, lot of food, nice food.
No kidding.
It's a wonderful place to live because we are very close to the mountains of the Pyrenees. So it's very interesting to if you like to walk a little bit in the mountain, or if you like to ski in the summertime. We also about an hour and a half far from the ocean. So the ocean is very important because we receive influences from the ocean, and I will tell you after. And also we are very close to the main big cities in southwest, Bordeaux and Toulouse. So we are lucky because we are in the countryside, so it's very calm. But when we want to move a little bit, it's a perfect part of the world to live.
Yeah.
So my family has always been living in Gascony, and first at all we are a restaurateur family. After the war, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, and after, we had a very famous, known restaurant in Gascony. My grandfather, his name was Jean. He had 2-star Michelin, and he was one of the first local chefs to really imagine it was possible to propose a gastronomic cuisine with the local food. And rapidly, he created a kind of reputation to cook the local food that we can find very, very close to the restaurant, and to propose a gastronomic cuisine. And of course, after the dinner, after the meal, after the lunch, he had an impressive collection of single farm, single vintage, completely authentic cask-strength Armagnacs located in the farms very close to the restaurant. That's really how we have started to select some Armagnacs to sell by the glass at the restaurant.
So he was the first to take these very rustic, traditional dishes and give them a bit of this gourmet sort of style, and then with that, presenting not only the products of the region, which is, you know, many famous products that come from this area, but also the spirit of the region, Armagnac, and of course the name of the restaurant renowned around France and the world. And with it, the reputation of these Armagnacs that he's selecting, presumably, or
exactly. And one of the main difference between Armagnac and all the different regions where we make wine or spirit in France is Armagnac has always been sharing their activities between corn, cereals in general, forest, food, and vineyard for Armagnac. And by tradition, the farms always had a selection a kind of treasure sleeping in the cellar, and the people were very, very proud to keep Armagnacs for generations. It was a little bit the saving account. People used to distill their wine and keep the wine in the cask for many, many decades, because it was really the proudness of the family to have a complete stock of all vintages of Armagnac. And that's where my grandfather used to go to select some nice producer of lambs, of chicken, of ducks, of course, for the foie gras. And he had the occasion to go in the cellar and to test some single casks, some small batches of Armagnacs. And that's really how it started to select the first Armagnacs to sell by the glass.
Because traditionally the area has polyculture farms. They're doing pretty much anything they can to get by. And so he would simply stumble across these barrels, and these aren't commercial producers of Armagnac per se. They would have shared within the family, and if maybe you showed up at the farm, they'd sell you a bottle or two or whatever. But it wasn't very few of them were producing on a commercial scale, I assume, at that time.
And in fact, the relation between my grandfather and the farmers was very kind, very friendly. And so he proposed to buy what we call Damajan, 20 liters of this cask, sometimes some Pogascon, 3 liters of this cask. And of course, in the menu, in the wine list and the Armagnac list, he always indicated the origin of each Armagnac. It was not possible for him to imagine to blend a cask with another one, a vintage with another one. He really wanted to show the work of each little single producer.
All right. Wow. Very cool. And so over the last 30 years, that brand has developed. It's been famous here for decades. Now you do something a little bit different. You're a little bit obviously more involved in the production and selecting more selecting spirit itself, right? Rather than aged stock per se.
Of course, when my grandfather and my father started, it was much more selection of cask already mature in the estate than really an investment in white spirit and control the maturation. But year after year, of course, with the success of the philosophy, in fact, we have created a signature. We can say a small brand, and now a strong brand in the Armagnac area. But always we built everything with the producer, and the idea and the philosophy, following the philosophy of a restaurateur, was ready to bottle Armagnacs with the name of the farm, with the origin of each Armagnac, because each cask, each vintage, each bottle is different. And that because we were first at all a restaurateur, it was evident for us that this philosophy could work as a merchant, as a negotiant. And so we started with few casks, and year after year, of course, with the success, we were involved with more and more and more farmers. We selected more and more vintages, and today we have a partnership with about 30 different producers, and we age in our cellars about 60 different vintages. And we still have a part of the line that we call the unique collection, where we emphasize the origin and the originality of each Armagnac and each terroir.
Well, I think it's really interesting the way you guys have set it up, not only because you're highlighting these specific producers, but also you're encouraging them to produce brandy in a lot of ways, because it becomes a commercial endeavor at its beginning. And so there's money. I mean, in a lot of ways, if you can only see 30 years into the future and you're not sure that there's going to be a market for Armagnac, well, how much are you really going to produce? Maybe a barrel or two for your family or whatever. And then this gives them some money up front. They can, sell you part of their production, take the rest for themselves, commercialize it on their own if those so choose, or hold it and sell it back to you in 30 years if you guys are up for it. So I think it's really, really good the way you've set up the negociant to highlight both the producers as well as the product itself and how important that is. Because it is really a very, very unique product that really no other brandy is quite like Armagnac. I mean, we often compare it to cognac, but it's really quite different.
Yeah, in fact, again, this tradition to keep Armagnacs in the cellar for themselves help our company to really build the philosophy. Because the reserve of Armagnac was extraordinary in the countryside. It was not easy, but it was possible for my grandfather and my father, because this is really my father who create the company as it is today. It was more simple for them to really create this philosophy and to imagine it was possible to, even if the farm is not very famous, even if the production is very small, it was possible to put this selection of Armagnacs everywhere in the world, in the nice places, in the nice wine shop, liquor store, in the nice restaurants. And that's really how we have built the reputation.
Very cool. And of course you specialize in Darroze Armagnac, which is one particular part of the region, you know, because they make, I mean, in general, the best brandies. Is there a method for how you select producers you work with? Do you have sort of, is it all familial relations, or do you have people who show up and say, hey, I've got brandy, why aren't you buying from me? How does it work exactly?
Both of them. In fact, now in the 30 partnerships we have, there is half of them are some people where we distill some wine every year. There is really a consistent relationship with them, because we really want to control as much as possible the maturation. The maturation is so important. I believe that we will speak about that a little bit later. But the maturation and the control of the maturation is very important. The origin of the oak, how you must burn the barrel, how long you keep the spirit in the new cask, when you transfer in older cask, how often you aerate the Armagnac, plenty of operations that we can imagine during the maturation. And in fact, it was very important for us to have more control on that. So that's one of the reasons why we have decided 35 years ago to really start to distill ourselves the Armagnac, so to control the distillation and to control the maturation. On the other way, because we have a reputation to propose some very old vintages, we are still looking for some old cask. The main conditions are no sugar, no water additive, no caramel, completely authentic, classic, authentic Armagnacs.
Right.
And so every single year, we have the opportunity to buy some lots in some new estates sometimes.
Wow.
Also, we have some partners where, for example, they are retired, for example, and every single year we can buy 10, 12 casks. And for them, that's a good way to have a nice, period of, how would you say, when you don't work anymore at the end of your life.
Retirement.
La retraite, exactly. And for us, that's also a way to really control the process of purchasing. So it's a different system. Yeah. First, we continue to distill and to prepare the future. You're right, for the 10, 20, 30 next years. But also we try to keep as much diversity in our selection and in our collection.
And the relationship with the producers, like how involved, like I assume that some producers like you to be there and say, okay, pick right now, distill like this, use this distiller. Other ones maybe you're buying from, they're doing their own distillation. Like, how does that really, you're dealing on a personal level with them. How involved are you in terms of production at the estate? Or is it each producer you have a different relationship with and you got to deal with it individually?
With the 15 producer where we distill every year, that's a strong relation, because in fact, of course, first we are exclusive.
Right.
So for us, it's very important. For them, that's also very important. They are also very pleased because they know that we will keep their name or the name of the farm in the label till the end. And sometimes when I'm traveling in the US, for example, when I am in a nice place in California, in New York, or somewhere else, I make a picture, and when I come back home, I go to see the producer. Look at that. This is your bottle. Look, where is your bottle? Where is your name? And for them, that's very important.
Yeah.
They know that we will respect their work, and that we will, more than that, show their name everywhere in the world. So that's a key point for them. Also, what we pay more than usual. We know that it's very difficult to work in the vineyard, so it's a hard job. So the producer must be paid more than correctly. So that's also very important in the relation. They know that every year we pay a little bit more, and there is we follow them. So we won't say, okay, this year it's a difficult year, so we don't distill anything because the weather was not so good and we don't want to distill. So there is a consistent relation with them. So that's very important. And also, you can imagine, because you are professional, but maturing some Armagnacs is very expensive. We produce something that we will sell in decades. So it's really an investment in the future. So if you don't have the financial power, if you don't have enough sales to finance the stock, it's very difficult for the producer. So there is really three different works in our system. First one is wine grower. Second one is to distill, and after to mature. So we really control distillation and maturation, and we advise our producer when they replant some new vineyards, for example. We choose together which grape variety we're going to plant. Every single year we make a kind of
oh, we're stuck. Oh, we're back.
We make a kind of common meeting where we can go in Cognac, for example, to see some people and to test some Cognac, or where we can speak on an organic process, or plenty of different things which can help the producer to really also imagine the future together. So that's very important.
Yeah, very, very cool. And of course, I think it's pretty clear to most people watching, but a lot of what you do has to do with what's going on in the cellar, and that's obviously the crucial part of the élevage of any brandy. I'm always curious, do you have an idea of the spirit when it's being filled into barrels, perhaps because of the actual qualities of the spirit itself, or because you know an estate and the way it might age? Do you treat the different estates more or less the same, or do you know that this estate is very estery and powerful spirit, and therefore we're going to aerate more? And we know that at Bastide Armagnac they make very rich, powerful spirits, and so or is there a uniformity to the élevage, or is it really spirit to spirit?
That's a very good question. There is different points to answer the question. First is the grape variety. So we have 3-4 main grape varieties in Armagnac. The number one is in volume of distillation is Uni Blanc, about 50%. Uni Blanc is perfectly adapted to the young Armagnac. It's already a very, very nice grape to make some young Armagnacs, because the maturation is fast. And in this case, when you make a very young Armagnac, which is not our case, the youngest Armagnac we are producing is 8 years old. So it's still a long time. But when you make a VSOP, for example, 4 years old or 5 years old, in this case, we don't like to use too much new oak, because in fact, when you use a lot of new oak, you will give a lot of oaky character to the Armagnac at the beginning. And the Armagnac will ask for time to absorb such a quantity of tannins. So when you imagine that you will produce a young Armagnac, it's better not to use too much new oak, or sometimes no new barrel. Okay. The second grape is the Baco. Baco Grape is a local grape. Maybe that's my favorite. It's an hybrid. That one of the only hybrid which can produce something fine and elegant product. And the Baco is a very heavy grape, very, very heavy Armagnac with the Baco. And in this case, of course, we can imagine to use more new oak because the body and the complexity of the Baco will accept much more new oak. And also the Baco has a long potential of maturation. So in this case, we're going to use more new oak, for example. Number 3 is Folle Blanche. Folle Blanche is a very, very elegant style Armagnac made with Folle Blanche. And also in this case, it's a shame to hide the finesse with too much oaky character. So again, we will use very carefully the oak with the Folle Blanche. Number 4 is Columbar. So Columbar, honestly, this is not my favorite grape, so we don't have too much Columbar in our selection. It's interesting when you blend with different grapes, but pure, it's not so interesting. So first there is the grape. The grape will be, we have a different reaction with the oak.
Right.
Second can be the vintage. For example, such a year, 2020, I believe it's difficult to imagine when you have the wine. It's easier when you distill, just after the distillation with the white spirit. When you test the wine, it's very, very, very difficult to know exactly how it will be after the distillation. But just after the distillation, in such a year, very dry, with small production, usually this is not a year for long maturation. It doesn't mean it won't produce a nice Armagnac. Maybe it will be better after 8 years than a very great year, because the great year we ask for more time to give the maximum, to optimize the potential of the product. And again, in this case, and it will be I'm quite sure it will be the case this year, we will buy less new oak, less new barrel, because we believe that it will be very, very important to protect the finesse and the elegance of the vintage, and not to use too much oaky character to hide a little bit the particularities of the vintage.
I've always tried to figure out what is that vintage factor in terms of the wine itself, and it seems that the acidity is a real huge factor. And so in a very, very warm year, we often hear that, oh, the quality of the spirit is good, but it might not last forever, as opposed to maybe a more temperate year that has higher acidity, perhaps. Maybe that's going to give you a spirit that is better for maturation. Is that sort of we often talk about the soils in Armagnac and that being a crucial part of the quality, particularly the famous red soils of Darroze Armagnac, Sable Fauve, and I think that also lends itself to offering quite high acidities in the wines. Do you have an opinion on this, or an idea of what that factor is, or is it just the magic of production?
About the vintage, we often say that the vineyards of Bordeaux are very, very close. It's 50 kilometers, so 30 miles. So we often say that the great years in Bordeaux are not the best years in Armagnac for that reason, because we are looking for acidity, and it's interesting to note that usually when you make wine, if you produce too much in volume, the quality can be a little bit diluted. In Armagnac, the best years are often some very, very big years, big volume of production. Because again, for that reasons, we keep acidity, not too much alcohol, and don't forget that we don't produce wine, we produce spirit. The wine is just a step in the process of Armagnac making, but the distillation is a process of concentration. So even if we have something a little bit diluted in the wine, we concentrate everything during the distillation. So it's true that a a great year for wine, it's not automatically a great year for Armagnac.
Right, because you're not concentrating on the vine, you're concentrating in the stills. And simply having more spirit, because then you're further concentrating over 20 or 30 years, the likelihood that, one, you'll still have any brandy left at the end of 20 years, because you're going to want to sell some of it, you're going to blend some of it, that if you don't have it, it can't be a good vintage. Like, that's one thing that I mean, it's a good vintage until it's gone, and then, you know, I've noticed this a lot of times when you go through Armagnac and you're talking to small producers and you say, you know, and you say, you know, oh, 1979, great vintage, they'll say, or so, whatever it is, you know, that's pulling it out of a hat. And you, oh, why was it so good? Great weather, great, da, 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 da. No, it was shit. It was so hard to do everything. It was a terrible year, but we had a lot of Armagnac. And so it's a good vintage because it's still here. Look, it's delicious, you know? Yeah. And it's really interesting dichotomy there.
79 is a good example. 73, 79 in the 70s were very, very interesting in volume. And but that's also two very, very nice vintages in the 70s, 73 and 79.
And by contrast, not great vintages in Bordeaux. Exactly. You know, no legend by any means. That's really, really interesting. So you guys have done such a great job highlighting all these incredible vineyards and producers, and not too long ago you took the next step in production of brandy and started blending, which is this product, Les Grands Assemblages. I think we first met in Gascogne right when you were releasing these, or very soon after.
2011.
That's, yeah, very early, yeah. So I think we were there, yeah, 11 or 12, and this is another side of Armagnac, and I think at first, you know, a lot of us in the industry were like, oh no, Darroze is single estate, like how could they be going to do blends? But then you taste them and you're like, oh, this makes so much sense. It's really good stuff.
That was really a difficult decision to make in our company, because it changed a little bit our exclusive philosophy. The reason why I have decided to work on that line of blended Armagnacs, the first because some customer asked for. That was the first reason.
That's the best reason to do anything, right?
That's a good reason. People told us, why don't you propose something a little bit more simple to understand? Because when you read, for example, I have a bottle of 1962. This is what we bottle this today. So you have the signature and the brand. You have Baz Armagnac, so small part of Armagnac. You have distilled in 1962. Chateau de Gobe, which is the origin and the name of the farm. Distilled, bottled in September 2020. So the date of the bottling, because of course, once the Armagnac is in the glass, it doesn't move anymore. So for a vintage Armagnac, this is very important to know the date of the bottling. And also how many years the Armagnac stay in the cask. So that's a lot of informations. And of course, the connoisseurs, the geekers, the geeks, you say, the geeks of spirit, understand this kind of label. Yeah. But when you want to educate people, it's a bit complicated. So one of the reasons why we have decided to make a blend, it was also to make our labels a little bit easier to read, to understand. The second point is it was a challenge, because selecting some cask is a completely different job than making a blend. Yeah. When you imagine a blend, first you have ready to decide which style you want, and also you must keep in mind that the challenge is to be consistent in style, to keep this style for years and years and years. Yeah. So you blend a lot of different origins, a lot of different years, a lot of different casks, to be sure that you will be able to reproduce the same style in the future. But my concern was not to lose our reputation, not to send a difficult message to understand. So that's the reason why I've decided really to concentrate the line on old Armagnacs. So we have 8, 12, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60 years old. So it's a line of 7 different blends. The youngest is 8 years old, very pale, not too oaky, mainly made with Uni-Blanc grape. Mm-hmm. And the oldest is 60 years. Of course, the age on the label indicate always the age of the youngest Armagnac that we have used in the blend. It's not an average of the oldest, it's always the youngest. The blend is always very close to the indication of aging that we put on the label, but of course we use a little bit older Armagnac in the blend to really create something that we will be able again to reproduce in the future. And it's interesting to note after 10 years that it hasn't changed anything on our reputation.
No, and I think in a lot of ways it's brought people into the category. I mean, for us, the 20 is one of our best-selling Armagnacs. It's extremely fair price, and of course, Armagnac, as opposed to I think cognac, you can make something very, very good without dumping a bunch of sugar and other stuff at a younger-ish age. And 20, you're really starting to see some real maturity. It's always been one that really, really we've loved. Tell me about the blending process. Are you like you're blending multiple barrels? You have sort of a recipe for each. Obviously, it changes every year. And then water addition in barrel or in tank. How does that work? Oh, hello.
This is a cellar.
There it is. Oh, I miss Gascogne.
So this is it's a little bit dark, but I hope you will.
Yeah, we see everything. It's beautiful.
So this is one of our cellars.
One of our friends here is asking how many barrels do you guys have aging at any one time? I mean, it's not a huge operation, obviously, but you're probably one of the.
No, we have about maybe now a little bit less than 3,500 barrels of 40 liters.
40 hectoliters. 40.
To give you an idea, we have 20 years of sales in the cask.
Okay, good. You got to plan to grow.
Your question about the blends. First at all, when we have 1/3 of the blend left, we always use this volume of blending for the next one.
Okay.
So at least we have 1/3 of in the new blend coming from the last one. That we know exactly. For example, a 12 years old must be fruity. We really want to show the fruity character, the originality of each grape, and this fruit character. The 20 years old, we ask for more complexity. So we will look for more rancio flavor. All these flavors coming from the oxidation. And so each blend has its own character, and so I know exactly which Armagnac and which style of Armagnac I must use for each blend. And after, of course, the key operation, the key is also to blend minimum 8-10 different Armagnacs together. The more you use if you use a lot of different casks, of course, we don't have a single cask which really will give the style of the blend.
You have more homogeneity.
To share between different casks.
Great. Well, the 20 is gorgeous. They're all gorgeous. We love these, and they're a go-to for us. If somebody is new to Armagnac, do you have one particular? Is there one that you always just go for the 8 because it's so fresh and open, or is there one that's a go-to for beginners? And then the same question for someone who's an expert for these blends: what do you propose for someone who really knows their stuff?
Alors, there is something that I would like to speak about a little bit before.
Okay.
It's our distillation, because
Right.
our distillation, it will really change the style of our brandies. Usually in the world, to make a fine spirit, you use pot still, you distill twice, sometimes 3 times, and you don't use too much column still. Column still and the long columns of distillation are more for vodkas, all this kind of stuff. In Armagnac, we have something in the middle of a pot still and a long column still. This is also a column still. And in the column of distillation, there is some trails, some plates, and each plate, there is a physical contact between the vapors distilled and the wine non-distilled. And during this physical contact, this is where and when the vapors take out the wine, all the flavors, and of course, all the alcohol. And this physical contact explains the character of the Armagnac, something more wild, a little bit more rustic, sometimes austere, you said. And that's usually what we are looking for in Armagnac, something a little bit, not more difficult, but maybe with more healthy, maybe something more close to the earth. You know what I mean? And this is really due to this distillation and to the contact between the vapors and the wine. If you ask me what is my favorite blend, it's difficult. You know, it's like asking
Favorite child,
well, what's your favorite children? You know, it's difficult. My father always says that do not compare an 8 years old Armagnac with a 60 years old Armagnac. Of course, an 8 years old will be very fresh, more fruity, less complexity. Of course, less oaky character, less oxidation. But it can be very interesting after, for example, a big meal. You know, when you had a big meal, maybe it's better to have something young and fresh instead of something very old and heavy and complex. 50 years old Armagnac, for example, it's much more for when you have time. If you smoke cigar with a cigar, if you have a nice book to read with a book, you take your time, an hour, 2 hours. The Armagnac is always changing with air in the glass. And of course, it will be much more complex. You will find a different character when you just serve the Armagnac and an hour after with the oxidation, where the young Armagnac will stay a little bit more the same, you know, during the distillation, during the testing, the degustation. And so it's difficult to compare. Myself, maybe my favorite, and also maybe due to the value and the quality, it's between 20 and 30 years. We have what is interesting in Armagnac is that you can find some spirit at this age accessible, not too expensive. When you compare a Scotch whiskey 20 or 30 years old with an Armagnac, we are poor. We are.
The prices are nuts.
So it's very interesting to have a 20 or 30 years old Armagnac, because you have the complexity. You still have the natural character of the spirit, but you have the complexity of the maturation. Don't forget that we have what we call the angel share. So we lose about 2.5–3% of evaporation every single year. So there is a natural concentration during the process of maturation, and you can feel that in the spirit. And 20 to 30 years old are maybe my favorite age for an Armagnac.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm a huge, of course, I love a great old spirit, but just in terms of bang for your buck, I mean, there's very few that offer so much, and you know, it's lovely to talk about the blends, but you know, in the end, these single estates are so special, and I do want to highlight a couple before we go. One of the most famous these days is the the Cousin La Salle. I don't know if you're feeling the intense interest in this brand, in this farm in France the way we are here, but there's an incredible interest in this property. Can you tell us a little bit about these Armagnacs and this distiller, this farm?
Yeah, it's not a farm where we distill every year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really a one shot, I can say. What is interesting is this is a pure Folle Blanche.
Right.
Folle Blanche is the oldest grape in Armagnac. Before the phylloxera crisis, all the vineyards in Armagnac were planted with Folle Blanche. The problem with the Folle Blanche, it's a very, very fragile grape, very sensitive to botrytis. And after the phylloxera crisis, we have replaced the Folle Blanche with Uni Blanc and Baco. And so we have lost a huge portion of the vineyards of Folle Blanche planted in the past. This Armagnac Cousin La Salle is a pure Folle Blanche. It's not too humid because it's so sensitive to the botrytis that if you have the last 2 weeks of August very humid with a lot of rain, you can really lose the quality. Propose something very fine and elegant style Armagnac, and this is the case in all these vintages from Cousin La Salle. The finesse, incredible, but a finesse and character. It's interesting because sometimes you have something very fine, but not so long in the palate and everything. In this case, it's very fine, but wow.
Yeah, and textural. It's quite weighty, I think, for a Folle Blanche. It's also taken quite a bit of color for the age. I wonder, is that a particularity of the casks themselves, or just?
The reason why is the producer, the owner of the estate was a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So he had this estate more for fun than to live. Yeah. And he really wanted to do the best. Mm-hmm. So every year he used to buy some new cask because he knew that it was important to have new cask. Mm-hmm. But maybe forgot a little bit to transfer from new cask to other ones. That's the reason why all these Folle Blanche are, you're right, a little bit dark in color, but the tannins are not dry. The tannins are very, very soft. So it's right that you can feel some oaky character, some flavors coming from the new cask, but we kept the original and the original character of the vine, of the grape variety. And that's why it's so interesting.
So you were buying the barrels in this case, as opposed to some, and then putting them in your system and doing a little élevage once you got them here over the last. And is it true? Yeah, the importer said you're all done with this. Is it all?
Almost, yeah.
Almost done. Yeah, I hope you have a couple hidden in the cellar somewhere. I know better. And then another famous estate, I mean, one of the ones that our customers keep coming back to, Chateau de Gaube. Tell us a little bit about this incredible estate and why it's so special. What village is Gaube in?
It's a village called Perquy. It's in Bas Armagnac, where the sandy soils are very deep. The Bas Armagnac is interesting because that's one of the only terroir where we produce a nice product on sand with a long potential of maturation. Right. And Gaube is produced in the sandy soil of Bas Armagnac, and in completely different than Cousin La Salle because it's a pure Baco grape. Right. And the Baco is very, very, very well adapted to the sandy soil of Bas Armagnac. And if the Folle Blanche propose finesse and something very elegant. Baco will propose something very strong, a little bit difficult during the first years of maturation. The Baco will ask for more time for maturation, but after 20, 25 years and more, it's always changing, but it's more and more complex. And at Gorbe, what is interesting is that's really a strong partnership with them. The producer now is an old man. He's about 90 years old, still alive.
Wow.
In the 60s and in the 70s, he distilled a lot, and maybe he distilled too much because some days he has decided that's too heavy for me, and he sold the wine, so he stopped to distill. So we have 1972, 71, 70, 66, 64, 63, 62, and few bottles of 59. And it's interesting because all these Armagnacs were mature in big tanks, very big tanks, not in small, in cask, but in big tanks. And of course, maybe during the first years of maturation, these Armagnacs stay very young, maybe too young. But after such a long period of maturation, wow, it's really a full body Armagnacs, very complex, and with a lot of oxidation in these big tanks.
Wow.
And that's the story of Gorbe, pure Baco grape from deep sandy soils of Baz Armagnac, mature in big tanks. Okay,
great.
And this for example, these farmers, that's the kind of deal that we have with these old people. Every single year, we purchase 3 casks of each vintage. So for us, it's a good way to follow the farm, and for them, of course, that's very financially, it's very interesting, of course.
Yeah, of course.
It's a very good deal. It's a very, very good deal with them.
And I don't have a sample, but I had a customer ask about a specific a farm, I believe in Lannemagnan, Puteou. Can you tell us a little bit about that producer? It's not one that I've been to yet, which I've been to Gove, I've been to Coussard. Where's
Puteou is one of our last partners. Now it's a deal we started maybe 10 years ago. It's quite a big farm. Usually in Armagnac,
everything's small.
Yeah, it's small. It's quite a big farm. It's 3 brothers. We are not exclusive on this property, as they are distilling a little bit for themselves, and also because they are producing big volume of wines. They are selling the wines for vin de pays. We make some vin de pays de Côte de Gascogne, and maybe for different distillers.
Right.
But we distill about 25 casks at Puteou every year. We have 3 grape varieties at Puteou: Baco, Folle Blanche, and Uni Blanc. And it's going to be a name that you will see in the future, rapidly in the future.
Great. Well, it's definitely a village that I really like. There are a number of producers around there that I think are super high quality. I'm excited to taste more of those as they come online here. This has been great. I could talk about every producer you bottle all day long, but we've only got a few more minutes. I didn't want to highlight
that, in all our bottles, you will find a little book, a little leaflet on the neck of the bottle, where we indicate all what you want to know about the Armagnac. So the name of the producer, of course, the village, the type of soils, the size of the vineyard, the grape varieties that we have used, the age of the vineyard, the level of alcohol that we had when we have finished to distill, which kind of oak we have used, the name
All
of
the
the distiller, all what you must know to
all the
understand
good
the product is, yeah,
details.
exactly, exactly.
So go buy a bottle, guys. You'll get all the info you need. I did want to highlight briefly before we go, as in true to negociant form, you have started to buy other spirits, non-brandy spirits or brandies from outside, and we've had really a lot of fun selling these. And tell me a little bit about Bapton Clem, and I've got the Foursquare here, a little taste of that, and how that came to be and what your vision for it is.
Really, it's like a game. Honestly, it's not really a big deal. It's like a game. I have been in this adventure business for now about 30 years. And of course, I had the opportunity, and I am very lucky. We are doing an incredible, nice job. There is a long history on Armagnac. We have a profound respect of what our parents and grandparents did in the past. We try to stay at the same level, and maybe to improve the quality and to try to be the best as possible. We are living in a nice countryside. We are traveling around the world to push our bottles in the best places in the world. And also we are lucky because we have the chance to meet some incredible, nice people, also very, very passionate about what they are doing. And I have tested many different spirits from all around the world. And I have found a lot of similarities between rums and Armagnacs, especially old rums. And I have decided 4 or 5 years ago to ask for people, to ask for friends or people. Now, some of them are friends. Why don't you sell me a few casks of your rum? I would like to finish the maturation in Armagnac, and the same philosophy. I want to put your name on the label. I want to respect your product because I don't want to make a blend with my name on it. So Bapton Clem means Baptiste and Clément. This is the name of my 2 boys. Product, and we make some finishing at home. For example, this one stayed about 4 months in cask coming from Jurançon. Jurançon, it's a small vineyard close to Armagnac where we make some incredible, nice sweet wines.
Love the Jurançon.
Very acidic sweet wines compared to Sauternes, which are more full and
Susan, sorry, Susan, that's my wife. She's trolling us. Don't worry. They can be purchased at KNL. All of these wonderful products. That's such a cool source. So this is the Foursquare distilled in Barbados, brought to Gascogne, and then filled into barrels here in or there.
Alors, started the maturation in Bordeaux, okay, for 3 years, and 2 years in Armagnac.
Great, beautiful.
That's the deal.
I love it.
And actually, I have some rums in the cellar from Belize, from Australia, from what else? Guadeloupe, for different parts of the world. And that again, that's very small volumes, and and that's again, I don't have the ambition to make something very, very huge.
No, it's perfect for us. We love these sorts of things because it's it's a new way to enjoy these spirits that we know and love already, and you're bringing something new to the table that very, very few people are doing, and we really respect you for that. And I can't thank you enough for your time, Marc. It's been so informational. Yeah, I hope the next time we see each other is in Gascogne or in Los Angeles. Either way. I prefer Gascogne, but you probably prefer LA.
How is the situation in LA?
It's smoky, and we're still stuck inside, but the virus is getting better, so it's a bit.
Cross the finger.
Yeah, cross the fingers. It's still a little loosey-goosey, but we're hopefully getting there. But I do miss Gascogne, and I miss all you guys out there. So we wish you the best and stay safe. And We'll see you very soon. Thank you for all the
Thank you.
incredible products.
Have a
Santé.
nice day. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Au revoir. Merci beaucoup.